Thank you for coming here tonight. Wherever you are, whatever the day has asked of you, you can set it down now. You can let it rest on the floor beside you, the way one sets down a heavy bag at the end of a long walk. It will still be there in the morning if you need it, but you do not need it now. Take a slow breath in through your nose and a slower breath out. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw loosen. Let the small muscles around your eyes grow quiet. Tonight, we are going somewhere warm and slow. A workshop tucked beneath a stone viaduct in a hillside city, where a quiet person restores the painted panels of old streetcars. Nothing hurries there. Nothing must be finished by a certain hour. The trams arrive when they arrive. The paint dries when it dries. And the night is long and generous and made mostly of small, warm sounds. You do not need to remember anything I say. You do not need to follow every detail. The words are only a soft path, and if your attention drifts off the path into sleep, that is exactly what should happen. Let it happen whenever it wishes. Settle your head. Settle your hands. Feel the weight of the blanket, or the sheet, or the air against your skin. Feel the mattress beneath you holding you patiently, the way the ground holds a fallen leaf. Breathe in, slowly. Breathe out, slower still. Imagine, if you like, that the last of the day is leaving the sky outside your window. The light is going soft at the edges. Somewhere, far away, a bell is ringing the hour, but the hour does not matter. Somewhere, a kettle is beginning to sing on a low blue flame. Somewhere, a tram is rolling gently down a hill on rails that have not been used in a very long time. You are going to follow that tram in a moment. You are going to walk into the depot where it comes to rest. You are going to stand in warm lamplight and smell the mineral smell of wet enamel and hear the soft tick of cooling brass and watch a slow, careful hand at slow, careful work. There's nothing to do, nothing to solve, nothing to become. Only this, to be here, quietly, while the night deepens. Breathe in, breathe out, and now, let us begin. You step in your imagination onto a narrow street of pale stones. The street runs along the side of a hill, and the hill is stitched with old tram rails, some silver bright where a wheel has passed, most of them dulled to the color of river stones. Grass grows between the ties in tufts. Wildflowers lean out of the cracks. The rails do not go anywhere in particular anymore, and no one minds. The air is cool, but not cold. It smells of stone, and of the coming evening, and faintly of something sweet. Perhaps a linden tree in a courtyard nearby. Perhaps a bakery that is closed for the day, but whose ovens still hold a whisper of warmth. Above you, high overhead, a great stone viaduct crosses the valley. Its arches are the color of old bread. Along the top of it, occasionally, a car passes with a low hum, but the hum is so far above you that it sounds more like weather than machinery. It is a friendly hum. It has been humming that way for 100 years. You follow the rails as they curve gently downhill. The light is dimming, bluing, softening. Lamps have begun to come on in windows above you, small yellow squares. You can hear, from somewhere far behind you, the faintest scrape and whisper of a wheel on iron. You do not turn to look yet. You keep walking, slowly, letting the rails guide you. The tram will arrive in its own time. At the bottom of the slope, tucked beneath one of the great arches of the viaduct, you find the depot. It is not a grand building. It is simply the space between two of the stone piers, closed in with warm-colored brick and a row of tall wooden doors. And above the doors, a modest sign that reads, in faded lettering, simply, Enamel Works. Nothing more. One of the wooden doors stands open. Golden light spills out onto the stones, and along with the light comes a faint, welcoming smell. Mineral. Oily, but clean. The smell of wet enamel, like earth, and like glass, and like something patient. It is the smell you have come here to breathe. You step across the threshold. Inside, the depot is longer than you expected, and lower, and warmer. The brick walls curve gently overhead, following the shape of the arch above. Iron rails run in 3 parallel lines down the length of the floor, each line ending at a wooden buffer padded with old canvas. These are the bays. Bay 1, Bay 2, Bay 3. Each bay wide enough to hold a single tram, and each one lit from above by a cluster of lamps hung from long brass chains. Bay 1 is empty tonight. Its rails gleam faintly. Bay 2 is empty as well, though a folded canvas drop cloth is bunched at its far end, as if waiting. Bay 3 is not empty. Bay 3 is where the tram sleeps. You see it now, in its full length. A single streetcar, perhaps 30 feet long, standing quietly on the rails. Its color is pistachio-green, the pale, dusty green of the inside of a pistachio shell, and it is trimmed along every edge with a soft cream piping, like the icing on a cake. Its windows are dark. Its brass fittings glow faintly in the lamplight. Its wheels rest on the iron with a look of great contentment, as if they have finally come home. The tram is old. You can see that. The pistachio green has faded in patches. The cream piping has chipped along the corners. Near the front, above where a driver would have stood, there's a curved metal panel, the destination scroll, with a small painted plate beside it that is worn nearly bare. These are the things that will be tended, but not urgently. Never urgently. The tram is still ticking as it cools. You can hear it if you stand very still. A soft, irregular tick, like a slow clock made of brass and iron. Tick, tick, a pause, tick. It is the sound of a body that has been moving all day, settling gently into stillness. You breathe it in. The restorer is here. You had not seen them at first, because they were kneeling beside the tram, gently sliding a small wooden wedge under one of the wheels. Now they stand, unhurried, and dust off their hands on the front of a long apron, the color of oatmeal. The apron is speckled all over with tiny dots of dried enamel, greens and creams and blues and ochres, like a field seen from a great distance. They notice you. They nod once, softly, in a way that means, welcome, take your time, there's nothing to say. Then they turn back to the tram and go on with their work as if you had always been there. You find, along one wall, a low wooden bench with a folded blanket on it. You may sit if you like. You may stand. You may drift closer to the tram to look, or hang back in the warm shadows. Nothing is required. You choose to stand for a while and watch. The restorer moves along the flank of the tram with a soft cloth in one hand. The cloth is a piece of old flannel, gray and forgiving. They run it along the pistachio-green surface, not pressing, just listening, because that is what they are doing, in a way. Listening with their hand, feeling for the small places where the enamel has lifted, where a hairline has spread, where a chip has taken a flake of color down to the metal beneath. When they find one, they pause and touch it with the pad of a finger, and murmur something very softly under their breath. Not a word, exactly. More like an acknowledgement. Yes, I see you. I will get to you. Then they move on, and the cloth whispers over the paint, and the tram ticks, and the lamps overhead glow, and somewhere very far above, the viaduct hums its old, patient hum. The whole length of the tram takes them a long time to walk. They are in no hurry. They stop at the front, near the destination scroll, and consider a palm-sized panel where the cream piping has crazed into a fine web of hairlines, like ice on a puddle. They tilt their head. They tilt it the other way. They breathe out, slowly. They walk to the back of the tram and consider a small chip near the rear step. They tilt their head again. In time, they choose the palm-sized panel. It is the panel that'll be tended tonight. Just this one panel. Just this small square of cream, no larger than the flat of a hand. They rest their cloth on the tram's flank, folded, and turn toward the workbench. The workbench runs along the wall opposite the bays. It is made of thick, honey-colored wood, worn smooth in the middle, where 100 years of hands have leaned. Above it, on shelves that climb almost to the curve of the ceiling, are glass jars. Hundreds of them. Small ones, medium ones, a few tall ones, like slender bottles. Each jar holds a powdered color. Each jar has a small paper label, and each label is written in the same careful, slanting hand. The greens are grouped together on one shelf. Pale mint, pistachio, sage, a deeper leaf green, a green that has an almost gray heart. Beside them, the creams, bone, oatmeal, buttermilk, a pale straw, a cream so pale it is almost white, but not quite. Then the yellows, then the ochres, then the browns, then the reds, which are used only rarely and are kept up high where the light does not reach them much. The restorer stands before the shelves and looks up. They are choosing. They lift down a small jar of pale cream, the color of the tram's piping, and set it on the bench. Then they lift down a slightly deeper cream and set it beside the first. Then a jar of very pale ochre, which will warm the mix. Then a jar of a color that looks almost like nothing at all, a soft, dusty white, which will lighten it if the day has aged the piping toward pale. 4 jars. 4 small glass jars, standing on the bench in a neat row, each one no taller than a thumb. The restorer looks at them for a long moment. They are not deciding anything. They are only greeting the colors. Hello? 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 Now they turn to the spirit burner. It sits at one end of the bench, on a square of dark tile, a small brass burner with a squat glass reservoir of fuel beneath it. They lift a matchbox from a wooden dish, slide it open, take out a single wooden match, and strike it against the side of the box with a soft, dry scratch. The match flares yellow. They lower it to the burner's wick, and the flame catches. They adjust a small brass wheel, and the flame flattens, and blues, and settles into a low, steady hiss. A pale blue crescent, almost soundless, almost still. It is the color of a summer sky an hour before dawn. They set a small enamel pot on the burner's ring. The pot is white on the outside and speckled blue within, and it is chipped along the rim in 3 places, and the chips have been chipped for so long that they have become part of the pot's character, and no one thinks of them as damage anymore. Into the pot, they spoon a base, a clear, syrupy medium that will carry the color. 2 spoons. 3. They stir it with a long, pale spatula made of bone, worn smooth by years of stirring. The medium warms slowly. The blue flame hisses beneath. The smell of the enamel begins to rise. That mineral, patient smell, cool and clean, like a wet stone in a stream. You breathe it in. Once, twice. It settles in you like something you have known for a long time. While the medium warms, the restorer opens the 4 small jars of powdered color and lines them up in order. The pale cream first, then the deeper cream, then the pale ochre, then the dusty white. Each lid is set carefully beside its jar. Nothing is placed on top of anything else. The bench is a landscape of small, calm, upright things. They lift a tiny brass spoon, smaller than a teaspoon, smaller than a coffee spoon, no bigger than a fingernail, and dip it into the first jar. They tap the powder into the pot. It sifts down in a fine pale cloud and disappears into the warming medium. They stir. The color begins to bloom softly. They dip the spoon into the second jar. Tap. Sift. Stir. The color deepens, just a whisper. They dip into the third. Tap. Sift. Stir. The color warms, just a whisper. They dip into the fourth. Tap. Sift. Stir. The color lightens, just a whisper. They lift a small square of white porcelain from the bench and let a single drop of the enamel fall onto it. They tilt the porcelain. They hold it up to the lamp. They carry it slowly across to the tram and hold the porcelain beside the palm-sized panel to compare. They look. They tilt their head. They tilt it the other way. The color is close. Not perfect. Close. They return to the bench and add a very small spoon of the pale ochre. Stir. Another drop on the porcelain. Another walk to the tram. Another look. This time, they nod. Just once. Softly. The color is right. They lower the blue flame further until it is only a whisper of light beneath the pot, keeping the enamel warm without cooking it. They lift the pot from the burner and set it on a small iron trivet in the middle of the bench. They cover it loosely with a scrap of muslin to keep out any dust that might drift down from the beams overhead. Then they turn and cross the depot and choose their brush. The brushes are kept in a tall clay jar beside the shelves. There are perhaps 30 of them, standing upright, handles down, bristles up. Each one is made of a different hair: squirrel, sable, badger, ox, goat, and each one has a different tip. Some are as broad as a thumb. Some are as fine as an eyelash. The restorer runs a finger along the tops of the bristles, feeling them the way one feels the tops of tall grasses when walking through a meadow. They stop at a squirrel hair brush of medium size, its handle worn to a soft brown, its bristles trimmed to a plump, rounded point. They lift it out. They test it against the pad of their thumb. They nod. This is the brush for tonight. They carry it back to the bench. They lay it beside the pot. They fetch a small tin cup of clear thinner. They fetch a square of soft cloth. They fetch a low wooden stool and set it near the palm-sized panel on the tram's flank and settle themselves down onto it with a soft breath. Everything is ready. They dip the squirrel hair brush into the pot. They lift it and touch it against the pot's rim to release the excess. They carry it slowly to the panel. They pause, holding the brush an inch from the metal. They breathe in. They breathe out. They lower the brush to the surface. The bristles touch. The color goes on with the softest possible whisper, a sound almost too quiet to hear. But you hear it, because everything else is quiet enough to let you. the whisper of a squirrel hairbrush against warm metal, laying down a film of pale cream enamel, no thicker than a breath. They draw the brush across once. They lift, they dip, they touch. They lay down another stroke, exactly beside the first, the two strokes meeting so gently that you cannot see where one ends and the other begins. Whisper, whisper, whisper. The color goes on. The panel comes alive, not all at once, in small, careful movements. Whisper after whisper, breath after breath. You watch. Time stretches. There is no clock in the depot, and if there were, no one would look at it. After some time, the restorer sits back on the stool. They rest the brush across the rim of the pot. They tilt their head, considering. The first coat is laid. It is thin. It is even. It shines faintly in the lamplight, still wet, still bright. Now they must wait. The first coat must set before the second can be laid. This will take a little time, perhaps a half hour, perhaps a little more. The depot is neither too warm nor too cool, which is exactly how enamel likes to dry. The restorer stands up from the stool, slowly, and stretches. Not a great stretch, only a soft one, the way one might arch a hand after holding it still for a while. They roll their shoulders. They look mildly at the ceiling. They look mildly at the far end of the depot, where a small iron stove sits with a copper kettle on top of it. Tea. It is time for tea. They cross to the stove, unhurried, and lift the kettle. It is half full. They carry it to a small stone sink at the corner of the depot and turn a brass tap and let cool water run in until the kettle is a little heavier. They close the tap. The last drops chime softly on the metal of the sink and go still. They carry the kettle back to the stove and set it on the iron top. They open a small door at the base of the stove and look in and see that the coals are low but not dead. They add a single small log from a stack beside the stove. They close the door. They wait a moment, and the fire begins to breathe. While the kettle warms, they walk back to the bench. They take up a fresh scrap of cloth and dip it into the little tin cup of thinner. They lift the squirrel hairbrush from the pot's rim and gently, very gently, clean the excess enamel from its bristles, drawing the cloth from the base of the bristles to the tip in one long, unhurried motion. The cream color comes away in a soft smear. The bristles begin to show their true pale gold again. They clean the brush and clean it and clean it until the cloth comes away almost without color. And then they lay the brush on a small folded towel to rest. They pick up another brush from earlier in the day, a small badger hair, and clean it as well, though it was already clean. They pick up a third, a fine sable, and clean it as well, though it was already clean. They are not really cleaning. They are visiting the brushes. They are letting the time pass in a way that feels useful. The kettle begins to whisper, not to whistle. It has a whistle in its lid, but the whistle has been removed years ago because a whistle is too sudden for a place like this. Instead, the kettle simply sighs softly and lifts a thin thread of steam from its spout, and the restorer knows that the water is ready. They lift the kettle and pour a slow stream of hot water into a chipped enamel mug that has been waiting on a shelf beside the stove. The mug is white with a blue rim. There's a chip at its lip and another at its base. The chips are old friends. Into the water, they drop a small muslin bag of tea, something with chamomile in it, and lavender, and perhaps a little linden. And then set the kettle back on the stove and let the tea steep. Steam rises. The smell of the tea joins the smell of the enamel, and the smell of the wood of the workbench, and the faint smell of the coals, and the whole depot takes on a fragrance that is like nothing else in the world. Warm, mineral, floral, wooden, calm. They carry the mug carefully to the workbench. They set it on a small clay coaster. They do not drink yet. The tea is too hot. It must steep, and it must cool, and it will tell them when it is ready. While the tea steeps, they sort pigment. They lift down, one at a time, a row of small tins from a lower shelf. Each tin is round and shallow, no larger than the palm of a hand, and each one has a color painted on its lid, a bright dab of the pigment inside, so one can see at a glance what it holds. The tins are old. Their paint is worn. Some of the labels have faded to ghost colors. The restorer sets them on the bench in a long row. Then they begin to sort them by hue, reds together, oranges together, yellows together, greens together, blues together, violets together, the neutrals, the whites, the grays, the browns, the blacks, at the far end. Within each group, they sort by lightness. The palest at one end, the darkest at the other. They lift a tin. They consider it. They set it down between two others. They lift another. They consider. They set it down. It is a soft, patient work. There is no right answer. Only a slow ordering. Only the small pleasure of putting like beside like. The tram ticks. Tick, tick. A pause. Tick. The blue flame hisses under the pot. The kettle sighs on the stove. The lamps overhead pool their warm gold onto the pistachio-green flank of the tram, and onto the honey-colored bench, and onto the pale hands of the restorer as they move from tin to tin. You feel your own breathing slow. You feel your shoulders drop a little further. You feel the weight of you settle a little deeper into wherever you are resting. Somewhere in the depot, a small, soft sound begins. A padded, four-footed sound coming from behind a stack of old canvas drop cloths. The cat. The cat lives in the depot. She has always lived in the depot. She is the color of wood smoke, with white feet and a white throat, and eyes the color of new honey. She is not young, and she is not old. She is somewhere in the long middle of a cat's life, which is the most contented part. She pads out from behind the drop cloths and stops in the middle of the floor and yawns hugely and stretches her front legs long in front of her and then her back legs long behind her, one at a time. She sits and licks a shoulder and looks around the depot with the mild interest of someone who knows every inch of it and finds it, tonight, exactly as it should be. She crosses to the tram. She sits beside the wooden stool. She looks up at the freshly enameled panel, tilting her head, considering the color the way the restorer considered it, as if she too has a small vote in the matter. The restorer looks down at her. They do not speak. They simply lower a hand, and the cat lifts her head to meet it, and their fingers pass along the top of her small skull, and behind one ear, and along the length of her back to the base of her tail. The cat closes her eyes. A low, soft purr begins in her chest, and fills the air around a stool with a warm, steady vibration. It is a small engine of contentment. The restorer moves the hand once more along her back, then away. The cat opens her eyes. She looks around, unhurried, and then she notices the folded canvas drop cloth at the far end of Bay 2. And she seems to decide that this is exactly where she would like to be. She walks to the drop cloth, unhurried, and steps onto it, and turns 3 times in a small circle, and then folds herself down into a curl. She tucks her nose under her tail. Her eyes close. Her breathing slows. The cat is asleep, or nearly so, and the depot grows quieter still. The restorer lifts the enamel mug. It is cooled enough. They take a first careful sip. The tea is warm and mild, and tastes of small yellow flowers, and of clean water, and of a garden at the end of summer. They hold the mug in both hands. The steam rises in a thin curl past their face and vanishes toward the lamps. They stand at the bench, drinking their tea, looking mildly at the tram. The wet enamel on the panel is beginning to lose its sheen. It is setting gently, the way a small pool sets after a rain. Not dry yet, but no longer wet either. Halfway home, they drink the tea. They set the mug down. They pick it up again. They set it down. Time passes in the shape of a warm mug being lifted and lowered. Time passes in the shape of a cat's slow breathing on a canvas cloth. Time passes in the shape of a blue flame hissing beneath a covered pot of enamel. After a while, the restorer walks back to the tram and considers the panel again. They touch, very lightly, the flat of a fingernail to a corner of it, not to the paint itself, but to a place just beside it, where the metal is bare. They can feel, without touching the color, whether the color is ready. They can feel the warmth of it, the way one feels the ripeness of a fruit by cupping it, not pressing it. They nod. Not yet. A little longer. They return to the bench. They cross to the shelves. They lift down a small brass box that holds the finest brushes, the ones used for the smallest work, the tips no wider than a hair. They open the box. They inspect each brush. They choose 2 of them and set them beside the squirrel hairbrush on the folded towel. Later in the night, when the second coat has been laid and set, and the third coat has been laid and set, and the whole panel has dried enough to be judged, they will use these fine brushes to touch in the smallest details, the tiniest hairlines, the finest edges. But that is later, much later. There is no need to think about it yet. The distant hum of the viaduct rises faintly as another car passes far above. The hum lifts and dips and fades, and the great stone arches carry on being great and stone and arched, as they have been for longer than anyone can remember. The tram ticks. Tick. Tick. A pause. Tick. The cat breathes. The blue flame hisses. The kettle sighs, more softly now, as the water within it cools. You breathe. The restorer moves to the middle of the depot and lifts a broom from a corner. It is a soft broom, made of pale straw, worn round at the tip from years of use. They begin to sweep. Not vigorously. Not to clean anything in particular. Only to move the broom over the stones of the floor in long, slow strokes, gathering small motes of dust into a small drift. The broom whispers along the floor. It is a cousin of the brush whisper. It has the same quality, soft, patient, unhurried. It says, "This is the shape of the night. This is the shape of the work. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is late. Nothing is missing." They sweep down the length of Bay 1. They sweep down the length of Bay 2, stepping softly around the sleeping cat, who does not stir. They sweep along the wall behind the workbench. They sweep the little space in front of the stove. They gather the small drift of dust into a tin dustpan and carry it to a wooden bin and tip it in. They put the broom back in its corner. They return to the tram. They test the panel again with the flat of the fingernail beside the paint. They nod, ready. They settle back onto the wooden stool. They lift the muslin from the pot. They lift the squirrel hairbrush. They dip. They tap. They breathe. The second coat begins. Whisper, whisper, whisper. The color goes on again, softly, just as before. It settles into the first coat, like a hand settling into a familiar glove. The two coats become one. The panel deepens. The cream grows richer, more solid, more like the cream of the rest of the piping. The restorer's shoulders are soft. Their breathing is soft. Their hand is soft. Everything about them is soft and slow and unhurried and full of long practice. Whisper, whisper, whisper. The second coat is laid. They lean back on the stool and rest the brush across the rim of the pot again and look at the panel with mild satisfaction. It is coming home. It is remembering itself. The paint that had chipped, the piping that had crazed, is being coaxed back to the shape it had 100 years ago, when the tram was new and rolled up and down these hills with its bell ringing and its bright destination scroll turning under the driver's hand. The restorer does not think about 100 years ago. They think about the next coat and about the tea and about the warmth of the lamps and about the soft weight of the brush in their hand. The past of the tram is present in the paint, in the metal, in the small dents along its flanks. It does not need to be remembered. It only needs to be tended. They rise from the stool. They cover the pot again with the muslin. They walk slowly to the bench. They pick up the enamel mug and drink the last of the tea. It has cooled to just warm, and it tastes now more of the linden than of the chamomile. Sweet, wooden, faintly honeyed. They rinse the mug in the stone sink. They set it upside down on a small wooden rack to dry. They stand for a moment, watching a single drop of water gather at its rim and fall, silently, into the sink. Then they walk to the far end of the depot, where a narrow window looks out through the arch into the night. They lean their forearms on the sill and look out. Outside, the city is dim. A few lamps are lit in the windows above the depot. The rails climb up the hill and vanish into blue shadow. The sky is deep, deep, a color between black and violet, with here and there the small silver point of a star. Somewhere, very far away, a bell rings. Some hour that does not matter. The sound rolls once across the valley and softens and is gone. The restorer breathes the cool air. They breathe it out. They stand at the window for a while, and no one hurries them. They come back to the workbench. They lift a small notebook from beside the row of tins. It is a plain notebook, bound in dark cloth, its pages soft from handling. They open it near the middle, to a fresh page, and take up a pencil that has been sharpened many times. They begin to write, slowly, the date at the top of the page, not in numbers, but in the old way, the way this workshop has always written dates. The season, the moon, the day. The words go on softly, one after another. Then a short list in the same slow, careful hand. The tram's number, the bay, the panel, the color mixed, the number of coats laid, the brush used, the condition of the surrounding piping. They pause between lines. They look up at the tram, and then back down at the notebook, and then up at the tram again, checking their memory against the truth of it. The pencil whispers along the paper. Another whisper, a cousin of the brush's whisper and the broom's whisper. The whole depot is made of whispers tonight. They close the notebook. They lay the pencil beside it. They rest their hand on the cover for a moment, the way one rests a hand on the head of a small dog before leaving the room. The third coat, when it comes, is the finest of all. They settle back onto the stool. They lift the smallest of the fine brushes, the one no wider than a hair. They dip. They breathe. They touch the tip of the brush, once, to the very edge of the panel, where the new cream meets the old cream. They draw a line so fine you can barely see it, blending the new into the old. They lift. They dip. They breathe. They draw another fine line alongside the first. The two lines meet. The seam between the new work and the old work vanishes. Where there was a chip, there's now only piping. Cream, smooth, whole. They work along all four edges of the panel. Slowly, slowly. Each edge takes many minutes. Each edge takes many soft breaths. You breathe with them, softly, without noticing. Your eyes, if they are still open, are growing heavier. Your body is warm. Your body is heavy. Your body is here, in a warm bed, in a quiet room, while a distant workshop tends to a small panel on a green tram, and the two places are the same place tonight, and both places are quiet. The panel is done. The restorer sits back. They look. They tilt their head. They tilt it the other way. They do not smile. They do not frown. They simply see what they have made, and it is right, and they let it be right. They rise from the stool. They lower the blue flame on a burner until it goes out, with a soft, small sigh. The burner cools. The pot cools. The muslin lies over the pot like a folded prayer. They wash the brushes in the tin cup of thinner. Once, twice, 3 times, each stroke long and careful. The color leaves the bristles and drifts into the thinner in soft, pale clouds. The brushes come clean. They lay each brush on the folded towel, tip pointing the same direction as its neighbors, handle pointing the same way, a small, orderly army at rest. They wipe the bench. They wipe the rim of the pot. They cap the 4 small jars of powdered color and return them, one by one, to their places on the shelves. Pale cream, deeper cream, pale ochre, dusty white. Each one clicks into its spot on the shelf with a small, dry sound, like a pebble settling into a stream bed. The bench is clear. The bench is honey-colored again, plain, wide, patient. They walk to the tram one last time. They run the flannel cloth along its flank, softly, from front to back. Whisper, whisper, whisper. The pistachio-green shines faintly in the lamplight. The new cream at the panel blends into the old cream, and the tram is a little more itself than it was at the beginning of the night. There will be more nights. There will be many more panels. The tram will stand here for weeks, and each night a small square of it will be tended. And by the time the tram rolls back out into the world under its own slow inertia, it will be whole again, and gently, quietly, cared for. But that is all in the future. Tonight, this one panel is enough. The restorer crosses to the lamps. They lower each one at a time, by pulling gently on a small brass chain. The lamps do not go out, they only dim. The great warm gold in the depot softens to a deep honey, then to a low amber, then to a hush of light that is almost, but not quite, darkness. The tram, in this low light, seems to be sleeping. Its windows are dark. Its brass fittings glow only faintly. Its wheels rest, deep and patient, on the iron. The cat, on the canvas dropcloth in bay 2, is entirely asleep. Her breath rises and falls in small, silent waves. Her white feet are folded neatly beneath her. The stove, at the far end of the depot, glows softly from within, a low red heart. The kettle sits upon it, silent now, no longer sighing. The workbench is clean. The brushes are at rest. The jars are on their shelves. The notebook is closed. The restorer stands for a moment in the middle of the depot and simply looks at all of it. They breathe in. They breathe out. Then they walk, unhurried, to a small alcove near the back, a nook you had not noticed before, where there is a low wooden bed with a plain blanket folded at its foot. They sit on the edge of the bed. They untie the oatmeal apron and hang it on a peg beside the bed. They slip off their shoes and set them neatly, side by side, on the floor. They lie down. They pull the blanket up. They close their eyes. The depot is quiet now. The tram ticks more softly. The cat breathes. The lamps hum very low. Far above, the viaduct hums its old, patient hum. You are still here. You are still watching. That your eyes have grown so heavy that watching is only a thought, only a warm imagining, only a soft awareness that all of this exists and that all of it is well. You feel your own body now, the weight of it, the warmth of it, the bed beneath you, the covers over you, the soft rise and fall of your breath. You are safe. You are warm. You are held. The panel is tended. The tram is asleep. The cat is asleep. The restorer is asleep. You may sleep too. Let your breath grow slower. Let it grow softer. Let the sound of the words drift a little further away, like lamps being lowered on brass chains. The mineral smell of enamel, the warm lamplight on curved metal, the soft tick of cooling brass, the pistachio-green, the cream, the whisper of the brush, the blue hiss of the burner, the powdered color sifting into glass, the felted quiet of the canvas, the distant hum of the viaduct, the tea steeping in a chipped enamel mug. All of it is here. All of it is well. All of it will still be here in the morning, in its warm, slow way, whether you dream of it or not. Rest now. Let your thoughts go softer. Let your body go softer. Let the depot fade gently at its edges. The lamps are low. The tram is still. The cat sleeps. The night is deep. You are here. You are safe. You are warm. Sleep now. Sleep. Sleep. And if you are still with me, still listening, still awake in that thin, drifting way, that is all right too. There is no hurry. There has never been any hurry. Not here, not in the depot, not in any of the quiet places you have wandered tonight. The tram is asleep on its cushioned rails. The cat is asleep on the folded canvas. The restorer is asleep beneath the soft gray blanket, one hand resting near the edge of the bed, palm open, fingers curled the way fingers curl when the mind has finally set its work aside. And above them all, above the whole hushed workshop, the viaduct hums its old, patient hum. It has been humming for a very long time. It will keep humming for a very long time. You do not need to listen for it. You do not need to hold it in your mind. It hums whether you notice or not. That is one of the kindnesses of this place. Nothing here needs you to keep it going. The lamps burn low without your watching. The brass cools without your counting. The enamel sets without your care. You may let go. Let your shoulders soften a little more. Let your jaw unclench if it has quietly clenched. Let your tongue rest behind your teeth. Let the small muscles around your eyes go still. There. That is the shape of rest. If your mind wanders, and it may, minds do, let it wander somewhere gentle. Back to the pistachio-green. Back to the cream. Back to the slow whisper of the fine brush along the curve of a lantern housing. Or back to the tea. The chipped enamel mug. The steam curling up in a lazy ribbon. The warmth of the mug pressed against a palm. Or back to the cat. The slow blink. The tucked pause. The soft, even breath. Any of these are good places for the mind to rest. None of them ask anything of you. None of them will move if you look away. The workshop is drawn around you now like a second blanket. Its walls are old brick, warmed by years of low lamps. Its floor is worn wood, quiet under bare feet. Its ceiling is high and lost in a gentle dimness and holds nothing you need to think about. The great doors are closed against the night. The bolts are drawn. The little iron stove has burned down to a soft red glow, and a kettle sits on its edge, no longer whistling, only warm. Everything that needed doing today has been done. The panel is tended. The lantern is restored. The dust has been swept into its small, careful pile. The brushes have been washed and stood upright in their jar. The rags have been folded. The apron has been hung on its peg. There's nothing left undone, and there's nothing left for you to do either. You did not carry anything into the depot tonight. You will not carry anything out. You are only here, resting, in the warm, slow air of a place that is glad of you and asks nothing. Let your breath grow slower still, in and out, in and out. If a thought rises, some small worry, some scrap of tomorrow, you may set it very gently on the workbench beside the lantern. The restorer will not mind. The cat will not mind. In the morning, if the thought is still yours, you may pick it up again. Most thoughts left on a workbench overnight are found in the morning to be smaller than they were, and lighter, and easier to hold. For now, set them down. Set them all down. You are not the tender of the panel tonight. You are not the driver of the tram. You are not the keeper of the lamps. You are only a listener, only a breather, only a warm, quiet weight beneath a blanket. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is, in fact, exactly what is asked of you now. The tram cools on its rails. Somewhere along its brass flank, the last faint tick sounds, and then no more. The metal has given up its warmth to the air. It rests in the same temperature as the room, and the room rests in the same temperature as the night, and the night rests in the wide, dark hush of the hills above the viaduct. The cat sighs in her sleep, a small, round sigh, and settles more deeply into the canvas. The restorer does not stir. Their breath is slow and long. The blanket rises and falls with it, so slightly you would not see it unless you were looking, and you are not looking. You are only knowing in the softest way that they are well. The lamps are lower now than they were. One by one, in their own quiet time, they will lower further. The oil in their small reservoirs will burn down to a whisper. The wicks will glow orange, then rose, then a dim ember. And the depot will find its way into full darkness, and the darkness will be kind and warm and untroubled. You do not need to see any of this. You only need to rest. Let the picture soften. Let the colors blur into one another. The pistachio-green folds into the cream. The cream folds into the brass. The brass folds into the lamplight. The lamplight folds into the dark. And the dark is soft. The dark is a blanket over a blanket. The dark is the depot at its most peaceful, when even the restorer has stopped tending, and the tram has stopped ticking, and the cat has stopped sighing, and everything is only breath, only warmth, only the low old hum of the viaduct far above. Breathe with that hum, if you like, not matching it. You could not match it. It is older than matching, but resting inside it. The way a small stone rests inside a deep pool. The way a feather rests inside a closed book. You are the small stone. You are the feather. You are held. If sleep has already begun to find you, let it. You do not need to finish the story. The story finishes itself. The story has always finished itself on its own patient schedule, whether or not anyone was listening at the end. And if sleep has not yet found you, that is also all right. Sleep is a shy thing. It comes when it is ready. It does not like to be watched for. So let it come the way steam comes off a mug, without your looking, without your asking, only in its own soft time. Meanwhile, the depot keeps you company. The tram keeps you company. The cat keeps you company. The restorer keeps you company, even in their sleep. You are not alone in the quiet. You have never been alone in the quiet. There are so many small, kind places in the world where lamps are being tended, where enamel is being smoothed, where tea is being poured into chipped mugs, where cats are curling into folded canvas. They exist whether you visit them or not. They are existing now, in their own warm way, in their own hidden corners, without needing to be known. That is a comfort when you think of it. So do not think of it. Only let it settle at the edge of your knowing, like a coat left over the back of a chair. The mineral smell of enamel is fading now. The warm lamplight on curved metal is fading now. The soft tick of cooling brass has already faded. The pistachio-green is a memory of a color. The cream is a memory of a color. The whisper of the brush is a memory of a sound. The blue hiss of the burner is a memory of a sound. The powdered color sifting into glass is a memory of emotion. The felted quiet of the canvas is a memory of a texture. The tea in the chipped enamel mug is a memory of a warmth. All of these memories are safe. They will not leave you. They live in that soft, warm shelf inside you where kind, small things are kept. You may return to any of them, any night, any time. They will still be here. The tram will still be on its rails. The cat will still be on her canvas. The restorer will still be at the workbench or asleep beneath the gray blanket, depending on the hour of your visit. And the viaduct will still hum its long old hum above it all, whether you come or not. But now, for now, you may rest. Let your breath grow slower. Let your breath grow softer. Let the sound of these words grow quieter, quieter, like lamps being lowered on brass chains, one by one, along a long tiled wall. One lamp lowers. Another lamp lowers. Another. Another. The tiled wall grows dim. The pistachio-green grows dim. The cream grows dim. The brass grows dim. Only a warm, faint glow remains, and that glow is enough, and that glow is kind. You are warm. You are safe. You are held. The depot is quiet. The tram is still. The cat sleeps. The restorer sleeps. The night is deep. The viaduct hums. You are here. Rest now. Rest. Let the last of the words drift away like steam from a cooling kettle. Let them thin. Let them go. Sleep is very near now. You can feel it in your hands. You can feel it in your feet. You can feel it in the slow, warm weight of your body against the bed. Sleep is a soft gray blanket being pulled up gently to just under your chin. Sleep is a lamp being lowered on a brass chain until only the smallest ember remains. Sleep is the cat's slow breath, the tram's cooled rail, the restorer's open hand. Sleep is the depot, closing its great doors against the night, and the night closing its own great doors around the depot. And you are inside, and you are warm, and you are held. Good night, small traveler. Good night to the tram. Good night to the cat. Good night to the restorer, and to the workbench, and to the little iron stove, and to the kettle warming on its edge. Good night to the pistachio-green. Good night to the cream. Good night to the brass, and the enamel, and the powdered color sifted into glass. Good night to the viaduct, humming its long old hum above it all. Good night to the lamps, lowering one by one along the tiled wall. Good night to you, wherever you are lying, whatever room holds you tonight. May your room be as warm as the depot. May your covers be as soft as the gray blanket. May your breath grow as slow as the restorer's, and as even and as easy. You may let the story go now. You may let my voice go now. You may let the depot fade gently at its edges until it is only a warm shape at the back of your mind, and then only a warmth, and then only a rest. Sleep now. Sleep. 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 The lamps are low. The tram is still. The cat sleeps. The restorer sleeps. The depot sleeps. And you sleep too. Good night. Good night.